I think, especially with everything that's going on in the world of social media, I believe there's a future, and there's an article that we have that goes along with this, that Twitter and Snapchat end up merging. And I have a thesis on this, but I want to get your thoughts on it.
Well, I look, I don't use Snapchat that much. I have it on my phone. My wife uses it a lot with her family and stuff like that. I do use Twitter. I read more Twitter than I use Twitter. I don't think so, and here's why. Now, my
I'm a
experience,
prolific tweeter.
my experience with this is that I think Twitter has existed in its current form for so long because it's useful. If you remember, and well, you're about a decade younger than I am. In the early days of the internet and chat rooms and stuff like that, the existence of chat rooms in their form lasted 15 years. And why? And they kept trying to alter them. They kept trying to do different things, and it all basically came down to a basic chat room because it was simple and people liked it. Twitter, I think, is very much the same way. It's super simple and people like using it. It's a real-time app. I put it out there. It goes out to everybody that follows me. It has the ability for people to find me. All I have to do is text it on this phone, right, in
Right.
160 characters, and it goes out. I don't have to record anything. I don't have to do anything else. It's super
It's
simple.
like 200 some characters
Well,
now.
yeah, they've upped it now, but
280.
my point is it's super simple, and every time they've tried to add something to it, what does 99.9% of Twitter still do? They type
They
in their
hate it.
tweet and they get it
Yeah.
out and they go on about their business. I understand growth and you got to continue to grow or you die. There's no third direction, but I don't think that Twitter wants to take on something like a Snapchat and try to integrate it in such a way that disrupts their original thought process, because you can kill a company. There's a lot of companies out there that integrate something that all of a sudden their users don't like anymore, and then it dies.
And here's why here's my thesis on it. There is an article on The Verge, is old now. The story keeps falling off of our story list. But I'm happy we're finally getting to it. Twitter Twitter created a new feature called fleets.
Right.
Not only have I not used this feature, I hate this feature. I have been banned. I have been banned from Twitter for doing a slight, what they referred to as a racism, but they didn't understand. I'm an Indian guy. I made fun of an Indian comedian.
Just because you're Indian does not mean you can be racist, Danny. You need to
It does.
understand that.
Yes, it can.
No, it
In this
doesn't.
country, in this
No.
country,
No. No.
okay. But what I'm saying is, I made fun of a comedian of the. First of all, it's a comedian, so you're a lot like they should have the intestinal fortitude to go along with.
I agree with that for 99.9% of the time.
And
Yeah.
here's all basically I just said, I bet you only speak English. And I got basically effectively saying I'm more Indian than you because you don't speak anything other than English. And I got the boot, but I got 14 different accounts, all for different purposes.
While I
different
disagree
businesses.
with why you got booted, because I don't find that racist, I'm
Yeah.
still happy that you got booted. I take anytime you get booted from pretty much anything, there's some personal joy in it for me. Just FYI.
And sometimes I wonder if this relationship can last for that reason. But uh no, but like, so I had 20,000 followers, I had 16,000 tweets. It wasn't but I have across all social medias, I have separate profiles for my different businesses, separate profiles if I want to say something political. And I have
Right.
one personal one where I follow my friends, but mostly my friends' wives, to see pictures of their babies. Because they're
But I don't
cute,
know.
and I
Look,
just want to see their cute and racial babies. I
back
don't
to
really
the
want to
Twitter
see
thing.
anything else.
I don't think anybody. I don't know of anybody that actually caught on to the fleets thing, that uses it regularly. That you know that.
No, I see people using it that I follow pretty regularly, and that's why I do think that there is a potential. Here's why: these are two companies that have grossly underperformed, whose user base is not going the correct direction.
Sure.
Their IPOs were
Hey, people still made money, brother.
They did. I'm not saying they didn't, but I'm just saying like their IPOs didn't perform. The Snapchat was they all had a heat up period, and this is my opinion anyway. But Twitter was about to not matter in 2016. Then something happened. I'm not going to say what. And then for 4 years, something continued to happen. I'm not going to say what.
Right.
And then it's not going to happen for them anymore. And that I think was it was like you took best wrestler off
Sure.
of WWE, and then you're like, well, I mean, so like you're gonna have to find there's gonna be a refractory period where we have to kind of I don't want maybe you use the word rebuild is incorrect, but the spirit of what I'm trying to say is a lot of users got turned off by that
Mm-hmm.
whatever. Again, I'm not saying what happened, but I think there's enough. It's going to be enough people where it's whether it's the people that left or the people who were entirely animated by that one user's content,
Mm-hmm.
right? Because that one user had so many replies and people whose entire audience was built on replying to that person,
Right.
even though that person is no longer on the platform, right? Now, what do
Right.
you like? There's so that the ripple effect of that one thing could be large enough to where they're gonna have to figure out a new lane for where they're gonna matter.
Well, but I think that's constant. I look, and I've always been a
It
fan of
is
this.
constant, but I'm saying I don't think it was ever they. I don't think their Twitter is anticipating the volume of what it's going to be.
Absolutely. And even if they are, I don't know what they could do about it, right? I mean, you and I aren't on the inside of Twitter and the meetings that they have, and a
Speak
lot
for
of big
yourself.
companies. Well, and maybe you are. But look,
I'm getting leaked information about the inside of Twitter all the time.
here's the point. I
I'm the
think,
WikiLeaks of tech.
wouldn't it be more beneficial to work with a company than necessarily acquire or merge companies? Wouldn't it be like Facebook, even though Facebook bought Instagram,
Right.
Facebook still has not integrated Instagram. What they did is they integrated the ability for
That's
them to
not true.
talk to each other.
That's not true.
What's not true?
You can when you say integrated, I don't know what you mean, but I
What
think
I'm
they.
saying is remove Instagram. Like taking away Instagram, it is now Facebook, right?
No,
That
yeah, you're right. It's its own app.
that's what companies ultimately do sometimes.
Yeah.
And in my
So they
opinion,
haven't absorbed it altogether. And the
correct.
reason we bring this up is Twitter created fleets, and now Snapchat, they've made an agreement where your snaps and your fleets are synced up. So I think that scale of integration, when you're integrated that much with a competitor,
Hmm.
if you can call them that, I think when you do that, there's at least we're flirting, right?
Well, but that's my point. That's why do they
We're
have to go
not
so
we're
far as
at
to
the disco,
envelop?
we're flirting.
Right.
That,
They can why not create the technology, and it's already out there in a lot of different ways, but give the people that are in Snapchat the ability to click a button, a blue bird, that
yeah,
then shares their information to Twitter, and vice versa, right? Twitter having a button that says this information and now in some way, right, gets communicated to their platform,
right.
and do it that way, and both of them benefit now from maybe there are people out there on Snapchat that would enjoy their right stuff being on Twitter and vice versa, versus this whole eating each other up and trying to integrate.
Yeah, no, and so when I say merge, what I meant by merge was more of a Facebook acquiring Instagram. And I think Instagram's initial hope was to get acquired by Twitter. Because if you look at what they were doing, their initial integration was into Twitter's API. Your username
Mm-hmm.
came over from Twitter, your picture, it came over from Twitter,
I
all that
always thought
stuff.
that too. I thought that was the most logical step. Twitter acquire Instagram. Now you're acquiring that video type of. You know
Yep.
what I mean?
It was a picture. It was just pictures back then.
Well, but I'm
But
sorry, but you see what I
yeah,
mean. Like that was the
I
next
see
step.
exactly what you mean, right? And that was at the time where they still had Vine, so they had all of this going on, where they could have easily acquired it. I thought
Mm-hmm.
it was, and then as the story turns out, Zuckerberg came in with a Billy, and Twitter came in at 877 or something like that. I think that was
Yeah,
the offer. They took the Billy. I
You
would take
can't
the
blame
Billy
them
too.
there. You can't. Well, because at that point, they were also going to lose control, right, of it, right? They were selling the company. They weren't
Yeah.
just, hey, let's work together, whatever.
But
They were
but if
selling
I'm
the
Kevin
company.
Systrom and you tell me I can have a $1 billion exit, even though he's not taking the billion home with him, I don't care if he took home 100 million. That's for dang sure.
Right. That
After a year,
there's a difference between I'm going to sell you my product entirely and walk away, or we're
yeah,
going to work together. I may choose a different path for a little less money if I work, to work with a particular person. But if I'm just getting rid of it, man, highest bidder is the one that gets it.
yeah. And here's and that's why I think because I think here's what's happening. And this is why I think they are going to go down a path where they become one company. Whether or not they merge the products is a little different
Sure.
than if they become one company. Here's why. I think they're too small. They are two separate, smaller competitors. And Facebook, Instagram, WhatsApp is this massive behemoth.
Mm-hmm.
And the only way to continue to matter in this post that guy that I'm not saying his name, not because I hate him, just because I don't want to talk about it. I'm
No,
so
no, no.
sick
I
of
got
talking
you.
about it. In that post era, they have a path to, because they have Periscope and all these other apps,
Mm-hmm.
there's a path to actually building a portfolio of social apps where they're not connected or whatever, but they offer different levels of service. And I think that is, and what happens ultimately is they go, hey, we have one platform, not one platform, but we have, holdings company. So, Jack Inc.,
Sure.
after Jack Dorsey,
Well,
Jack Dorsey Inc. has X number of users across 15 different apps.
right.
And they go
Combine
to
audiences.
advertisers and they monetize.
Yeah, combine audiences, right? Because that's
Right.
what it is, right? The bigger the audience, the more money advertisers will pay you. If Twitter and Snapchat combine their audiences, they would both benefit from a higher cost of profits from advertising. And so with you, I get that it makes sense. I just don't know that it would happen either one of them. Not all time. Look, a lot of CEOs and a lot of stuff like that don't always follow logic, right? Hence our first story today, right? Quibi,
Right.
right, and stuff like that. So there's a lot of moving parts of that. Sometimes it doesn't always. They don't always follow the things that make sense. And
And listen,
speaking, go
my
ahead.
final thought here is like, another reason I think this makes sense for them. Their audiences are two separate groups of people.
Absolutely, and that part
So
makes it even more advantageous for both of them, right? Because they
because
are
the
different
overlap
audiences.
between the two groups of like power users on these apps, influencers on these apps, is two separate groups of people so that you have a genuine growth in audience, or genuine growth in user base
Mm-hmm.
where it's not like, okay, we have 60% of our users in common. So I think it's enough where they go,
Mm-hmm.
okay, we create this powerful multi-app, multi-pronged business where ultimately what's the goal? Eyeballs,
Right.
right?
Completely
Gary
different
V, eyeball.
demographics, right? Which is one of the reasons I think Facebook ultimately buys TikTok. Completely different.
I
Can
don't
you?
think so.
Well, no, I'm just saying if under that idea, right?
Okay.
Facebook obviously Generation Z, right, and stuff
Uh-huh.
like that. But imagine Facebook acquiring. You're
You mean
acquiring
TikTok?
the next
TikTok is
generation.
Gen Z.
Well, that's what I'm saying. Facebook
Yeah, but
not great with Gen Z is what I'm
I didn't
saying.
hear that part
And then
because
you
sometimes,
acquiring
yeah.
TikTok, you're essentially acquiring another generation that you don't currently have access to or minimal access to.
Well, your theory is stupid and idiotic, and that's why our show is called "Idiots versus Idiots."